non-life. Welcome to Forfellinus Belly Snake Illumination from the Ancestors, guiding your path today.
Every day, someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great-grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them.
God Morgan. This sound thing, it's going to kill me, I swear. God Morgan, and welcome to Forfellinus Belly Snake. For those of you who haven't had a chance, please like, follow, subscribe, and help us to distribute this message far and wide. If you do find yourself in a place where you've got some questions about me, my teachings, my shows, and all of the things we offer, including my life coaching services, please visit my website at norsewhispers.com. Today we're talking about the balance of money, or the focus of money, as a role model to kind of pitch our direction in the storm of this thing we call a physical life. Many times we may seem overwhelmed. We may feel as if the world is kind of against us. And in fact, it is simply our interpretation of that reality that is causing us to think or feel this way. So using money now as our guide, we are going to talk about establishing balance and just a mental fortitude of controlling what we allow to influence us and what we don't. Because we do indeed always maintain the authority at which to control the energies that enter into our mind. So, each day we wake up, hopefully each day we wake up, and as we rise, we are going to establish our mental mindset. Now, many of us that mindset will depend on how well we slept that night, and so we could be waking up in pain, or we could have these, particularly for those of us who have now replaced the darkness of our beard with this lighter snow-colored, we could wake up in a little bit of achy and pains and not feeling so spry as we were back in our 20s. Nonetheless, as we wake up, we are indeed in charge, or have all the authority therein, to establish our mindset. Now, establishing that mindset, or what we would refer to as the mood, then sets the framework, sets the foundation for how we interpret the reality we experience. As an example, if we were to wake up in a, say, grumpy mood and we were to go about our day, we'd probably recognize that the things that were happening as we moved from our bed, getting dressed and getting breakfast, and then going to work, and our commute to work, and maybe even those first hour or so at work or at school, everything seemed to just kind of add to our frustration. Road rage, or those inconveniences in traffic, darn it, and the weather, and all of the things would kind of seem to conspire to create this even more problematic situation. But you're doing this. We wake up and we begin to establish our interpretation of reality. So if we were to wake up in this grumpy mood, we're the ones driving this. Because remember, we're going to set that mood ring. For those of you who haven't joined the show before, you may be new here. Our mood ring sits behind our sensory input, and it dictates everything we see, everything we hear, everything we smell, taste, or touch. Right? So our brain interprets what we experience based on that mood ring. That mood ring can actually extract individual pieces from the image that we draw in based on how we feel. So the brain is going to make sure that the experiences that we have match, to some extent, that mood ring. Right? So we're going to see things through that mood. And it can alter the image at which we see, which means we're technically not seeing reality. We're seeing our interpretation of reality. Now, we have to remember that this idea of altering reality is all part and parcel of the spiritual experience. When the gods, long time ago, long before you were physically you, before we had this physical form, before our spirit bonded to this form, when we were in the spiritual realm, we were created by a particle assembly in the spiritual realm, where certain particles came together in such a way to form a self-awareness, a consciousness, if you will. And they bonded together of a mixture of a multitude of particles of energy in the spiritual realm. Now, as these particles assembled, some of those particles were actually from the deities themselves, from the gods, who had kind of shed some of these particles out into the universe to create us. When we bring those in and they become part of our spiritual self, as we bond to this physical form, the experiences that we have on this physical realm pass through the whole thought process into our memories, which is then dual connected, right? So we have the physical mind over here and we have the spiritual mind over here, and between them we have these things called memories. Now, over the top of these three things, right, over the top of these three brains, is this thing called the consciousness. And the consciousness kind of slides back and forth depending on what we're doing. So if we're awake and alert and we're paying attention and we're noticing things and we're seeing and we're accepting experiences, chances are our consciousness is slid forward, connecting our physical brain and our memories together, right? So we're arched there. When we fall asleep at night, the consciousness is going to slide back. right? So we're going to slide away from the physical, right? We're going to slide away from that physical brain, and we're going to slide more towards the spiritual brain, now connecting the spiritual brain to our memories. This allows the gods, remember, they're connected because they have one particle of energy, at least, within our spiritual self, and that particle is going to pass energy from that place to them. So we're teaching the gods, we're teaching them our experience. Our experience now matters because it's a part for the gods to now see the entirety of an experience, because they see your interpretation, they see the other person's, they see another person's, they see a whole group of people who have experienced the event, and now they see it from all their different perspectives. Why? Because this particle of energy within our spiritual self is going to pass that experience, that interpretation of the experience, back to the gods. This then allows for that experience to now be seen on a much bigger scale, which was why many times the gods are going to be more knowledgeable in each of these little events, because they see it from a multitude of perspectives, right? So they have this whole 360, whereas we've seen it from one perspective, they see it from many. This is really critical in understanding that our interpretation of these experiences that we have are super important. While we may think that we don't carry much value, we do. We have a lot of value because your interpretation is as unique as you are. Remember, when we're passing the energy, okay, the energy's gone through the mood ring and it's down into the well of the self. Well of the self has these values, these virtues, and these belief systems. Each of one of them are creating an energy that feeds into the stream that we just experienced. All of these pieces of these values, these beliefs, whatnot, are marked within our DNA. So we are uniquely assigning energies to that stream before it's passed into the biochemistry. Now, biochemistry is very purely based on our unique DNA. Now, there have been already studies that have shown that our DNA, although minute, is modified throughout our lifetime. We will change our DNA. Now, the studies that I draw a parallel to here, of course, was done on bees, but nonetheless, we all do it. All physical beings, all life alters their DNA by just so little. But nonetheless, over a period of time, over our lifetime, that small trajectory change alters the path greatly. All right? Very much like, throwing a rock. If we alter our aim just a little at the launching point, by the time the rock arrives at the lake or wherever we've thrown the rock, it's going to be way off from its original trajectory. Why? Because we changed it just a little at the launch point. Okay? Very much the same way if we were to launch an arrow at our target. If we alter the launch point just a little, the arrow is going to go very high or very low or very left or very right, very way off from where we are hoping, right? Why? Because we've altered the trajectory just a little. Okay? So it's super critical that we understand that through our lifetime, each of these little trajectory alterations that are going to occur in our lives are going to have a long-term ramification, long-term change, most of the time for the good. Because our trajectory through this lifetime depends on the last piece. So if we were here, and if we want to be here, we have to be here first to get to here, right? So the trajectory kind of is dependent on the previous location, if you will. So very much the same way with our DNA. So we are in charge of our DNA. We are in charge. How do we change it? Well, of course, chemical compositions within our body, whether that be done emotionally or whether we decide to alter our chemistry using some other ulterior method, alcohol, any other type of mind-altering substance. Emotional states will have a huge effect on our lifetime alteration of that chemical composition, which then alters the chemistry that arrives back in the horn of feeling for us to then interpret back into energy. So all of these things are playing a part in our existence, in our experiences that we're pulling in. And now when we fall asleep tonight and our brain, remember, our brain slips back into connection between memories and our spiritual self. Now, the spiritual self is connected to the spiritual realm at all times, so we simply pass that experience from us to the gods, to the other spiritual entities who wish to see this, right? So who wish to know, learn, grow. All of these things means that your experience or your interpretation of your experiences are teaching the spiritual realm. So they're super important. This is one of your many, 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 many values that you have to all of existence, is that you're a teacher. You're experiencing things that will help others to learn. Now, I also draw our awareness to this idea that all spiritual beings are connected to the spiritual realm at the same time. So, if, as an example, I have an experience and I go to sleep and that experience is cast into my spiritual self, which then casts it to the spiritual realm, other individuals who are sleeping, who are their spiritual selves are listening, they may pick up on that experience and they may draw down that experience into their memories as an experience. Now remember, come Wootens Day this week, we'll talk about experiences connecting our real life, our real world experience to knowledge stacks, to that which we know, that which we think we understand. All of those things are going to come together and form these kind of interconnected webs, which we refer to as either wisdom, or it can be used as this thing called imagination, both of which are completely within our grasp of management and control. So, as we begin to embrace this idea of Mani today, the moon, we remember that Mani created a balance to his sister soul, the sun. Mani, of course, being the moon, would reduce the temperatures so that it was bearable overnight. If it was a very hot day, when Mani came in overnight, he would reduce the temperatures. He would also allow us to form questions. That was his big blessing, is that all day we're receiving intellect from soul, the sun. So we're gaining all these experiences, we're gaining intellect from almost every corner, and it's all kind of pounding in. And then at night, we're kind of going to settle down and we're going to think about all of those things that we experience today. And as we think about them, we're going to build questions, and those questions are then going to be cast both within our physical mind, in our memories, and then ultimately to our spiritual mind, casting out into the great spiritual realm where we're going to seek out that information. So all of these are very super important parts of letting us know that our interpretation of reality is super, super critical. All right. I need to take a quick commercial break. When we come back from break, I want to talk about how you and I can establish a better pattern of obtaining mental control first thing in the morning that then allows us to then accept an interpretation that we want, right? So that we're in charge of that interpretation. We're not allowing ourselves to fall victim to the fates. So we'll be right back after this commercial, and we'll talk about how we control what we see and what we experience.
The air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Thank you so much for taking that quick break with us. I hope that you, like I, have an appreciation for my family and friends at New Reality TV. Trust me, check them out, newrealitytv.com. You will not be disappointed. So many perspectives of our spiritual journey that can help us to obtain and maintain our mental space. So today we're talking about Mani, and we're talking about his gift of helping us to understand kind of our true trajectory alteration as we go through this physical lifetime. So one of the best exercises that we can do to help ourselves to kind of establish mental control is the first, obviously if we wake up first thing in the morning and life is great and it's wonderful and sunshines and lollipops, this is wonderful because this kind of establishes what we're going to experience in our world, right? So if we're in a good mood, this is something to note. If we're not, what can we do to get there? So a couple of tips that I've used over the years is the first one, and probably the most powerful, is this idea of affirmations. Affirmations are a great way to establish a mental state. So just little post-its maybe on the mirror that says, hey, today is going to be a great day. Or you're so awesome because you are. All right. Anything that helps shift our perspective. And that's what we're trying to do. We're making sure that our perspective is going in the right way. So we're going to think about that. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, this is life. Get over it, right? And, okay, here's what you can do. Many times when people come to see me and they say, we're depressed or we just can't find any joy in our lives, whatever the case may be, I tell them, I give them an exercise, and this is the exercise. I say, you're going to measure for the next 14 days, you're going to measure and we're going to alter kind of your mindset because you're programming yourself to do this. So this is how we're going to experience this. What you're going to do when you wake up every morning is the goal is to find a certain amount of things from in the first 90 minutes of being awake that helps you to establish joy. So you're going to find things in your experiences that bring you joy, happiness, peace, love, quiet, comfort, contentment, whatever you need to kind of reestablish that inner feeling of happiness and joy. So we're going to find a certain number of things. Now, the number starts, I usually encourage people to find 25 things in the first 90 minutes of being awake. 25 things that bring you joy. Now, you can write these down or you can make a mental note. It's completely up to you. But make a note of these 25 things. Now, some people will say, man, that's a lot. Wow, how am I going to find 25? Yeah, and you may not the first couple of days. You may struggle with it. Why? Because your brain is programmed to look for the negative. So we're training it to go the other way. Now, you've trained your brain to be negative, so we can just train it to be positive as well. So it's fairly easy. All we're going to do is we're going to set numbers, and we'll say 25 to start, and we'll do that for 5 days. In 5 days, we're going to search for 25 things every day that brings us joy, peace, harmony, right? And we're going to note those things, 25 things. And you'll discover as we go through these 5 days, it gets easier to find the 25 things. Why? Because you're shifting your mindset. You're shifting your perspective away from the negative, and you're kind of pushing it to this place where it's easier. The brain is going to help you highlight those things that it's looking for. So we're actively seeking joy. So we're looking for 25 things. At the end of 5 days, crank it up. Make it 75 things. Wow. What do you mean 75? I barely got to 25. That's right. Because you're going to do 5 days at 75. You're going to find 75 things in 90 minutes that bring you joy. Why? Again, we're training our brain to now look for just joy everywhere. Because believe it or not, joy is everywhere. I can find 200 things in 90 minutes. Why? Because, and they don't have to be extrinsic. Maybe some of them are memories. You had a wonderful dinner last night. My wife and I celebrated her birthday last night, and we had a wonderful dinner with our family around to provide her with joy and comfort. So it was wonderful having our sons home, and just my mother was here, and it was a wonderful evening, right? So there was joy to be found. So sometimes memories will serve as our one of our things, or maybe more than one. Maybe we have wonderful memories from last night or earlier this week, whatever. All right. So we're finding 25 things that bring us joy. So if we think about our evening and it was wonderful, and we have that momentary thought of it or momentary memory of it, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Check. Make a note of that. Hey, I had a good memory about that. That was pretty cool, right? Again, we're training our brain to look for those things that bring us joy. At the end of those 5 days where we're doing 25, we're going to up the game. We're going to go to 75 things. And from 75 things, we'll do that for 5 days. And by the end of those 5 days, we're going to be pretty good at actively seeking joy. But we're still not done yet. On the 4th day, or it'll be the 11th day, sorry. On the 11th day, we're going to change things up. And we're going to now find it. We're going to go back to the 25, and we're going to figure out the 25 things. Why? Why does that bring us joy? What is it about that experience that brings us joy? Well, in the memory, the wonderful dinner we had last night, because I had friends and family. I had family around us, and it was wonderful to see my shield maiden's face light up as we all sang happy birthday to her and brought her a cake with candles on it. It was just joy, right? So these types of experiences will bring us joy, and they will help us to actively seek it. So those 25 things, now we're going to ask why. Why did they bring us joy? And so we're going to do that for a couple of days. Now, our brain will have been completely changed. Remember, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to change a habit, right? It's just one of those scientific things they proved. So this is going to take 2 to 3 weeks as well. So 11 to 14 days, give or take. is plenty of time for us to actively engage our actively seeking joy. So, it's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful exercise to teach ourselves how to find joy all around us. All right, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful Mani's Day today, and I hope that he blesses you as he has blessed me and continues to bless me. And I see you again tomorrow as we celebrate the courage of Tyr, the god of, originally the god of one of the gods of war, but ultimately gods of justice and law, and recognized throughout the sagas for his courage. So hopefully you will join me for that. In the meantime, I wish you the absolute very, very best day today, and remember that you are indeed worth every experience as you teach the gods your unique interpretation of this physical reality. Love and light, my friends. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Watching Ulfhednar's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Ulfhednar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.